About ethical consideration for mediators. Ethics are those moral principles which should be followed by the mediator and the parties in dispute resolution. Mediation, being a powerful tool for resolving dispute, is not immune to ethical challenges. And what are those ethical principles? Values: confidentiality, neutrality, self-determination, etc., which a mediator must adhere to in mediation process. The role of the mediator is to facilitate mediation with integrity, impartiality, and to help to preserve relationship, because mediation is also about preserving relationship. People, people, people get uh, into trouble and they resolve. We learn to disagree and agree. That's what mediation is all about. You cannot be a mediator if you are impartial, you lack in neutrality. You are being tested as a mediator when you start having thoughts, opinions about the issue you are mediating. At that point, neutrality, impartiality should be a watchword as a mediator. There must definitely uh every field of work have their own challenges. There must be self-determination. A mediator should respect the autonomy of the parties in mediation. A mediator role in mediation is to facilitate conflict resolution, facilitate the conflict process, the mediation process rather, while the autonomy to decide if they're going to resolve or not relies on the party. So that self-determination, a mediator must respect that autonomy of the party. A mediator must possess competence and professionalism. Mediators must possess necessary skills, knowledge, trainings to perfectly facilitate the mediation process. Professionalism includes adhering to ethical guidelines, having knowledge about the industry where you're not practicing mediation, also help a mediator in future mediation process. For example, you can be a mediator for construction and maybe you don't want to go into commercial dispute. Learning about what commercial dispute is all about, what entails commercial disputes, knowing about it can also help you as a mediator. Because one day you can be called upon, you can have clients who are in having a commercial dispute. You can also consult experts in certain aspect of mediation field of what you don't know, to have knowledge. That's what professionalism also entails. There are universal ethical standards in mediation. One of them is the United Nations Commercial Mediation Trade Law. Is a modern law on international commercial mediation that provide guidelines on international commercial mediation, emphasizing confidentiality, impartiality, and autonomy. Another ethical standard in mediation is the ABA, American Bar Association, the mode standard for conduct for mediators. It provides a framework for ethical mediation process in the United States. It's addressing conflict of interest, competency, and fairness. We have, since mediation is not immune to ethical challenges, and Why trying to keep those principles in mediation? Trying to make sure you adhere to ethical values as a mediator. There are challenges. So what are those ethical challenges? Ethical guidelines cannot be absolute way of addressing all the situations in mediation or the difficulties in mediation. However, reviewing these ethical principles can help in clarifying the issues involved in a given situation. It helps to guide against the conduct to guide it helps to guide the conduct of mediation of mediators to promote public confidence. And there are challenges to it. Leakage of sensitive informations in mediation, especially on cross-border dispute, is also a problem. It's one of ethical challenges because mediation is all about confidentiality. So by the time there is a leakage of a sensitive information, it's already a challenge. Breach of confidentiality is also a challenge of ethical. It's also an ethical challenge where maybe, for example, in a family dispute, maybe concerning husband and wife, and at the beginning of the mediation, you've already talked about confidentiality. Whatever that is being discussed in mediation doesn't go outside the mediation process or the room or wherever the mediation takes place. So it will also be so honest for the parties, like the husband and wife, for example, in the dispute, not to disclose information that have been discussed in the mediation, or the mediator discussing what has been discussed in the mediation process to the family members. That's a breach of confidentiality. That's why it has to be signed. The confidentiality form have to be signed by both parties. Another challenge in ethics principles or power imbalance between parties. Manipulation and coercion by mediator. Never do that as a mediator. Trying to manipulate the process, trying to put pressure on the party to resolve dispute. Resolving of the dispute relies on the parties. It's been determined by the parties. So as a mediator, you don't have to force parties to resolve. It's not your duty to try to start forcing parties. You have interest, good interest, and you should never, as a mediator, advise them on a legal advice. Never. Because you're not a judge, you are a mediator. So how can we address some of these ethical issues in mediation? Because there are challenges. So strategies for mediators to address these ethical challenges is by enhancing trainings and education. Webinars, participate in webinars, workshops, retrain. Establish clear guidelines, code of conduct, implementing supervision and accountability mechanisms can help to address ethical issues in mediation. Promoting cultural competence and sensitivities. You can also, as a mediator, you must learn to navigate cultural bias, gender bias, and dilemmas in mediation. A mediator must also be careful about conflict of interest. You must be aware that any breach of confidentiality mars mediation process. A mediator must safeguard against putting pressure on parties to come to final settlement. sometimes maybe the mediator charge a fee for the mediation, and you think, oh, if they don't resolve, I can't be able to get my money. I'll be at total loss. At that time, when you are engaging party for mediation, maybe you can charge per hour, per day, so you won't be at total loss, financial loss as a mediator. For you not to put pressure on parties for settlement, because don't you full well that the final resolution belongs to parties. So as a mediator, you must take ethical considerations, very important. You must know the challenges, you must know the strategies to overcome those challenges. Because even in mediation, you must build, because respecting these ethical challenges is all about gaining public trust. Because mediation is all about trust. Parties trust you to disclose something so hidden within them, something so secret within them. So you must keep those principles. They must be your watchword as a mediator.